for those of you who have not met, my name's Dan Coast. I'm one of the development officers for Welsh Cycling. I've been in role 7 years now. And tonight's topic that we're talking about is GoRide racing, or coach-led sort of racing. GoRide racing is a program that we've had. It's part of our youth program called GoRide, which has been in existence for British Cycling now, probably getting on 15 years. It's a program that has helped young people to engage in the sport through a network of our GoRide clubs and our coaches, the full-time sort of members of staff, going into schools and engaging with young people and introducing them to the sports that we've got. The last Olympic Games, it was over 85% of the British athletes that went to the Games came from a GoRide club and a GoRide sort of program. That has just grown every Olympic cycle more and more. So it's the recognised route, if you like, for parents and young people to engage in the sport and start off on the right sort of footing. So yeah, we've got a few GoRide clubs that are on the call tonight, which is great. So if you've got anything you'd like to chip in from a perspective of having done some of these activities before, feel free just to raise your hand or pop something in the chat, and we'll bring that into the conversation. Okay. So I'll send in the link to this, but you may have seen it on the social media, what an event could sort of look like. It's something that we've done for a few years, and we've tried to link in with existing sort of programs and activities that have gone on. So in terms of the Tour de France, we've tried to encourage clubs and support clubs to run activities at that sort of time to basically capture the increased sort of recognition that the sport's getting at that sort of time, and opportunities for young people to sort of engage in it. So the little video that we've got here, which probably won't play because we're sort of sharing screens, is essentially from a miniature sort of Tour de France that we sort of did and got people engaged that way. So the aim of our GoRide program and the GoRide racing element of it, that it's definitely about entry level sort of racing. This is to appeal to people that have never raced before, rather than making activities in place for people that are already taking part at high level. The venue that you should be looking to do it is a traffic-free sort of environment. Obviously makes it a lot sort of safer, and from a management point of view, just so much easier to keep an eye on kids that will have such a wide spectrum of ability sort of levels. So ideally, it could be a school playing field, a little bit of creative. If you've got some banks and stuff, you can create a mountain bike course there, lay out some cones, and you've got a mini velodrome. You can create anything really. It sort of comes down to what the coach's expertise is really, and their background in terms of the disciplines. The activity should allow any bike to be used as long as it's in good working order and safe to use on the type of sort of terrain that you're thinking of doing for your activity. It doesn't require the competitor to have any sort of racing license or membership at all. Literally just book in this sort of COVID world that we live in at the moment in advance, hit your sort of numbers, got your contact details from there, and essentially they're into the race. The idea is that you can offer activities for all sort of main cycling, 6 of the cycling disciplines that we've got, from downhill, BMX, right through to road racing, again in a traffic-free environment, so not actually taking them out onto the road at all. And to deliver this, all you need is a level 2 coach and a bunch of enthusiastic volunteers to sort of help support the clubs, support the children, encourage them, and hopefully they become club members. And hopefully everyone walks out of it with a positive event experience. That's what we're trying to achieve with this program. So that's great, and that's easy enough as how we sort of get people engaged in it, and how does that essentially turn them into an Olympic champion in sort of 10-15 years time. And this is our sort of youth competition pathway. We're doing a bit more sort of review work on it now with COVID, and having a bit more sort of time to have a look, take a step back and have a look at our programs and what changes we can sort of make. So looking at the very bottom of that pyramid shape that we've got the school and club coaching that our full-time members as staff and coaches go into the schools and engaging young people with, getting the young people inspired about, sort of enthused about cycling, and pointing them in the right direction of where they go next. Now, we've got quite a lot of schools that have signed up to the GoRide program. Certainly in Cardiff, we're up to 20 schools already that have signed up to become a GoRide school club. So you may have seen that there's a lot of schools in Cardiff that have been given fleets of bikes. They've got teachers trained as coaches now. So when the children are allowed to sort of return, they will effectively be putting cycling onto the curriculum. So these children will be doing basic coaching sessions to get them competent on the bike, and then hopefully lead into some sort of competition, some racing, the same as they would for any other sport that they're doing in the school. This works quite nicely then when we've got a GoRide club as well, because that will hopefully mean that the GoRide clubs then aren't teaching kids from the absolute sort of basics. They can then teach that next level up and probably come straight in with the GoRide Racing, the sort of red element of that table that we've got. So new to the cycle sport, introduce them to competition, make it a fun way. And then we're into our existing sort of competition sort of framework. So your standard sort of races, heading down to Maindy or Marsh Tracks or Pembrey, doing a midweek sort of circuit race there, gaining experience, a bit more confidence, and then feeding into national series competitions, Welsh championships, and then onto British championships, and who knows, hopefully international selection further down the pathway. So what to expect? So our GoRide, accredited GoRide clubs, of which we are around 12 to 15 of those across Wales, hopefully when we're allowed to sort of return to activities and everything very soon, we want to support those clubs to deliver 6 events per year in a traffic-free venue, and using existing sort of coaching areas. So it shouldn't be anything different to what clubs are already doing in terms of sort of coaching. It's just giving it a competitive feel to it. Again, it can be any discipline. You could mix it up and almost have a one-day sort of mini Tour de France or Omnium, where you change up the sort of disciplines, but the kids use the same sort of bike. So you could do a BMX style race in the morning, and then follow that up with some circuit racing or mountain biking. It all depends on the ground that you've got and the facilities at your disposal. There's no need for any qualified officials in terms of fully trained commissaires. It's all about coach-led sort of racing. So as long as you have a level 2 qualified coach and a group of volunteers to help deliver the event can happen, no problem at all. There is a small fee in terms of insurance cover, so that's £10 per event. But we would definitely sort of encourage you, rather than sort of register a one-off event, try and set dates for a series of events, register them in one go. And I'm pretty sure there's a way that we can set that up so you don't have to pay a registration event fee for each individual one. If we've got a series of events, certainly in England, that's been cheaper where clubs have organised 6 or more events. The QR code, when you get it, if you scan onto that will give you a bit more information about GoRide racing. How to organise it? We have an events officer. His name's Reese. He's gone off on secondment for a few months to help with the GB cycling team ahead of the Olympic Games. But we are picking up that email address, so events@Welsh Cycling. So if you want to organise the event, please send that through to that email address. Myself or certainly some of our colleagues will then pick up that email and see what we can do to help you set up the event. Essentially, what you need to do to be able to organise any event, this is not just for GoRide racing, is your British Cycling dashboard, where you sort of access that with your members' offers and stuff like that. Down the side, you will be given an organiser tab. Once you've got that installed, then you can start going through the process of setting up an event. It's very similar to the same way that you would enter an event as a participant, but of course you're setting up those sort of details to the system, typing in where the venue will take place, timings, who it's for, and we can go from there. Again, have a look at the QR code. That will give you the step-by-step guide to setting that up, and we'll definitely put it in the attachments later on with the link to the video, probably coming out. So definitely by the end of the week anyway, so you'll have that information to hand. As with anything, there's obviously lots of different supporting documents that we will help you with. first of all, you need to sort of register with British Cycling, so affiliate, sorry, as a club, and then we can register the event onto the system. You also need to be a British Cycling member yourself if you're not already. You'll need to conduct a risk assessment. If you're a coach, it's the same risk assessment you've been doing for your coaching activities, but obviously from a racing angle. There are obviously implications with the COVID at the moment in terms of additional things you need to think of. If you've done the WSA course, then you'll already have that in place. If not, by all means, drop myself an email and we'll get you in touch with the WSA to get onto that sort of training. There are sign-on sheets. Again, COVID world, things are a little bit different. You probably won't necessarily need to sign on the day, but certainly encourage people to register in advance and then have a tick register, if you like, on the day, just to make sure people are there who are taking part. We have a load of resources that we can help you with. So in terms of volunteer roll cards, so if you've never organised before and you've got people who are very keen to help you but not quite sure how to handle any of the different roles, whether it's a marshal, a sign-on clerk, or anything like that, we've got I think we've got about 10 or 15 different volunteer sort of roll cards, which you can obviously print off or send across to the volunteer in advance, and they've got that to hand. So definitely helps when people want to volunteer but not quite sure what they're signing themselves up for. So quite a few clubs have had that information and made it available to when you're putting the call out for volunteers, and obviously highlighting what those opportunities are and what that role actually sort of involves. Race results, obviously a big part of why people compete, looking to see how they've done against their friends and hopefully sort of improve in the sort of future. So there's a basic sort of race result sheet which you can complete, send it across to the events at Welsh Cycling, and we will definitely put that into our events results system. There's also the other sort of opportunities with this. If you're taking photos at the event and try and sort of promote your club as well, then a nice little race report to go with the results and photos and videos and stuff is great. We can put that together, and it's great for our social media and website, and obviously highlights the opportunity for other people to get involved in future events that you might be doing. So what do you need volunteer-wise? Well, for most events, you're going to need marshals, high-vis jackets, or something to make them sort of stand out. We have a whole bank of CB little handheld radios, essentially, that you can borrow off of us for the events, just to make communication a lot easier throughout your officials. First aider is definitely sort of needed. You may not need to bring in a separate first aid company. If you've got coaches, will definitely be first aid trained, so obviously make sure they've got some equipment for that. Designated points for the marshals, so that will all sort of depend on how many marshals you need for your course and your venue, which all falls part of the risk assessment that you'll be conducting beforehand. You need plenty of marshals, obviously, on hand to watch out for the incidents and radio any issues that may come through. And a marshal coordinator is definitely worthwhile having. So somebody who isn't necessarily stuck on a corner marshalling themselves, but able to sort of float around between the different volunteers, make sure everyone's got stuff that they need to make the event a success. So for signing on when people arrive, then there is some sort of register system, making sure that people have entered their details correctly to be able to take part. If there's any entry fees, obviously we're not encouraging at the moment you to take money off of people. Obviously that can be done online in advance, and that's the way to go, or a contactless payment system if your club's bought into one of those systems at all. Issuing race numbers to the riders, obviously for identification, so we can see who's who when they're racing. We can help the club with that. We have race numbers that either pin onto the back of a rider's jersey, or rider boards, which you would, if been to mountain bike events, to go across the handlebars. They're really useful for your race officials, because you don't have to wait for that rider to cross the line then to see who they were. You can see them as they sort of approach you. And any new riders that are taking part will need to complete a consent form, which they would do for your clubs if you're running activities anyway. The number of volunteers, 1 to 2 is usually enough for that. Current COVID restrictions, if we were allowed to start racing tomorrow, would say that a maximum of 30 people within the whole event. So when you take out your marshals and everything, you're probably only looking at a maximum of 20 people actually taking part in the race. So 1 volunteer should be fine for that. Other officials, you need somebody to obviously help the riders, brief the riders and what they're doing, what the race involves. Coaches are really good for that because obviously they can give them some pointers in terms of what gear to start in, where to get their foot in the right place on the pedal. You need some lap scorers and timekeepers, depending on what your event is, if it's a time trial. Somebody just keeping an eye on the racing, making sure that nobody's making up their own sort of course, taking some shortcuts. Obviously somebody to ring the bell and wave the flag as well. And something you can do with sort of GoRide racing is actually incorporate a bit of a skills test in it. It doesn't necessarily need to be a big bunch race. So in the past, we have done skills events as a kind of time trial, and then using that to grade the riders when they start off. So starting them off in waves essentially, then handicap the race. An event result coordinator, just somebody to pull all those results together and then sort of feed them back to Welsh Cycling. Again, 3 to 5 volunteers would usually be right to cover most of those sort of roles. So that's what would entail an event and how it can happen. And the key thing to think about really is when should they happen. For us at the moment, obviously restrictions say that they can't happen at the moment, but there's going to be some point, hopefully soon, that we will be allowed to sort of return to activities. And because it's coach-led racing, hopefully that will return a lot sooner than standard competition as we know it. We think coach-led racing is going to be really important this year because kids have gone such a long time without being able to compete. They're chucking them straight back into standard competition is probably a recipe for disaster in terms of there's going to be a lot of crashes, a lot of people not sure, remembering what they used to be able to do, and certainly brand new to the sport won't have a clue what to do. So coach-led racing is going to be important to helping all these new people that have been out buying bikes and been inspired to get involved in cycling over the last year or so to get involved in the activity. So what we do suggest is you try and link them into big existing events that will hopefully be happening this year. So the Tour de France obviously gets a higher media coverage, as with the Tour of Britain and the Olympic Games. So those are just 3 things that would be great to sort of tie in with. They're obviously all over the summer holidays as well, and hopefully the weather will be great and we can get these activities up and running. So that was the kids side of things. We do have a similar offer for adults, and it's something we're going to certainly push a lot more this year. It hasn't been a huge take up in the past, usually because the costs involved with somebody putting on these events. But GoRace is our adult equivalent to it. It's open for 4th category riders, so people who might have a racing license but haven't scored many points. So by that, relative sort of novice into competition. You don't need to have a full racing license to take part, and of course it's open to non-members. So the idea is literally come and have a go. With most sort of competitions that we have, standard competitions, there is a minimum distance or minimum amount of time. For GoRace, it's the other way around. We have a maximum, so races shouldn't be more than 30 minutes. So the reason for that is to just try and encourage more that coach-led element side of things. Rather than just one race, it'd be great if organisers put on maybe 2 or 3 races at 10 to 15 minutes each, because it is about development and giving those coaching opportunities. So people could go out, have a bit of a race, realise that they started in completely the wrong gear, or there was some sort of issues with perhaps pressure in their tyres or something like that. They could have some sort of coaching advice and pointers, and then an hour or so later they can have another race, have another go, and try and put some of the techniques and tips given to them by coaches into practice, and hopefully get a better result in the second race. They have to be registered on the BC system. There is a small cost for that, but again, we are looking at what we can do to help organisers reduce that sort of cost. In terms of venues, it would be great if you can book existing cycling venues like Maindy or Pembrey. Appreciate that might not be easy in this COVID world that we live in. So other sort of venues where the facility has been risk assessed, it's something that we can help with as well. So if it's a brand new area that you've never used before, like a park and ride car park or something like that, then certainly regional staff, it's something we'd like to get involved with, helping you to sort of come down, check through the facility, help sort of design the course, and help you to create the risk assessment for that. It can be coach-led racing. So as we sort of said, you can provide a few pointers, and by being coach-led racing, it's something that we would be keen to help you with. We like to almost sort of develop a series of these sort of races, so they don't become completely ad hoc. If there was a coach-led race on for adults on a almost fortnightly basis, if we're allowed to get back to that sort of level of activity over the summer, it just gives lots of people lots of opportunities to come and have a go. We're not saying every club has to put one on every week, but if it rotated around Wales, we would have a series and lots more opportunities for people to come and have a go. And yeah, Welsh Cycling regional staff there to help out with that and make the event a success. Yeah, you'll save anyone trying to write this down. I'll send these links separately into the email as well for further information. So the top link will give you more about the GoRide racing, so the youth element side of competition. Below is from the British Cycling's website and tells you a bit more about the different road categories and classifications that are in place for competition.